And also that was like what success was for me. That was the only kind of merit of success that I could see or I've heard about, or was accessible to me as a native kid, like in school. Even though I was, to the detriment of my health, trying to achieve and personify that standard. Once there was a way to get back homeward. Once there was a way. Anyways, welcome back to another episode of the Neechie Mindset podcast. Sorry for singing in your ear like that. I'm so sorry. This have you ever watched Sing, actually? Before we officially begin, Sing, one of the best animated movies, actually. Before, like, obviously, like, you have like the Titans, you have like the Invincibles. I don't know what they're called, actually. I don't know why I started with that one. I actually don't really agree with that take. But you have stuff like the Iron Giant. You have things like Shrek, How to Train Your Dragon, Kung Fu Panda, right? And then I feel like in the 2010s, like after The Good Dinosaur, animation kind of took a little dip a little bit, and like we weren't getting like as good of like animated movies or whatever. However, in the midst of that, and that was for like 8 years or something. In the midst of that, though, Sing was released, and that is cinema. That is cinema. I love that movie, and to this day, it gives me like chills. Like I get like chills from it. Like it's so fantastic. Anyways, what are we talking about today? Oh, right. Yes. Okay. Welcome back to another episode of the Neechie Mindset podcast with your host, the baddest, the banicest, Cree Nomad. Thanks for coming back. I say, not so sadly. Imagine I said that, but I sounded cool. So today we are talking about determining what success looks like to you and why it's important. And the way I'm going to be sharing that is a little old-fashioned, a little traditionally. I'm going to say it all in Cree. Just kidding. I wish, my God, if I keep going to my Cree classes, maybe like someday, who knows? That'd be great. I really do. I am, like, this year, I'm taking it serious. I'm going to learn my mother tongue, because I do agree that like our Indigenous languages, like the language that was spoken by like our matriarchs and like our matriarchal line, that's our mother tongue. Because mother tongue is kind of like the language the first language you knew and stuff like that. That's what that means. I don't agree. I think I've always known Cree, but I just need to relearn it now, you know? Kind of like how I feel like the earth and the animals know Cree. I mean, at least in our part of the world. I've gotten off topic a couple of times already, so you could kind of tell where I'm at. I've done a lot of wild things before I have to go like on a work trip. And this is one of them. I have to be at the airport, on my way to the airport in 40 minutes, but I'm going to crank this out in the next 35. Yeah, I know. And that sounds crazy, but I did actually record this episode already. I'm going to be totally real with everyone and everything. But the card got destroyed somehow. I don't know, like it's broken. I don't know. Anyways, you don't need to know all of that. I'm like giving you a little behind the scenes kind of like look and everything. But yeah, I literally have a flight in like a couple hours. And but this is not, I feel like this isn't like the craziest thing that I feel like this isn't like the craziest. The craziest was when during the fall autumn equinox, I had a Hobbit party. And it was fantastic. All of my friends dressed as hobbity as they could, and I had cooked this massive like multiple course meal with like these desserts and these breads and stuff like that, like a full like hobbit meal. And then we had like a party, and it was like fun. It was here and everything. I decorated, and I did not take down the decorations. I just love them so much. I just like, I'm very obsessed with the Hobbit. But anyways, I didn't take them down, and so they're still up and everything. However, obviously, like, we ate dinner and stuff. We watched a little bit of the movie, but then we started playing like charades. I say charades, but apparently that's okay, whatever. Charades. And then we played some other games and stuff, and then we started watching the movie, and then we started talking and everything like that. And but I had a deadline. I was like, I need to kick everyone out at 9 p.m. And everyone's like, why? And I was like, I have a flight to catch. Like, I need to go to the airport for my flight at like 10:30 p.m. And so like it was so funny. I like was dressed fully as Bilbo Baggins, like that was who I was dressed as and everything like that. And I was like, yeah, like I have to go catch a flight because I had to be in New York that morning, the next morning for a meeting. And is that not the craziest thing? It wasn't a meeting, it was like a panel or something. I don't know, it was something like that and everything. Is that not the craziest thing you've ever heard in your life? A sane person would be like, oh, I have this flight to like this important event. Like maybe I don't throw a Hobbit party like the night before. I just cannot not do that. You know, like I could just not have a Hobbit party on September 22nd, Bilbo Baggins's birthday and Frodo Baggins. On fall equinox with all my Neechie friends, and we are celebrating like things like this, you know, like we want to like kind of decolonize our celebrations a little bit, and we started this year and everything. So I wasn't like I wanted to celebrate equinox with everyone, and we did, and it was so much fun. I'm trying to think of what the winter one, solstice, oh my god, I'm trying to, because I was like, we did like fall equinox and summer equinox. Is that what it's called? Summer solstice, and everything. And I was like, what is the winter one called? And I was like, imperial. That's not right. That is very not right. Yeah. Anyways, so again, this is not the craziest thing I've ever done, I guess. Is it the most stressful? Actually, no, because I didn't even pack for my New York trip before. I literally started packing at the party. Like everyone was out here enjoying themselves. I was in my room packing and everything, but I just kept the door open. And then every once in a while I'd pop in and like say something, you know, because I was like listening in and everything. Anyways, that was crazy. Oh my god. And I had to get changed, like, because obviously like I wanted to try and sleep as much as I could on the flight over and everything. And I had to like change in the airport bathroom, grab a quick breakfast at the airport. Like I had to grab something to go in a taxi and get to the place. But anyways, I digress. That, oh my god, we are like 8 minutes in and I have not said anything substantial yet. I would like to apologize. Okay, so what let's talk about determining what success means to you. Let's actually talk about it now. Yeah, and the way I'm going to share today's episode is through story. I mean, I'm already gearing you up. You've heard maybe 2 or 3 stories already and everything, so I'm gearing you up for just this one, and this one's going to be longer. But yeah, I think story sharing is so important. It's integral to like our culture. As I was like, as Indigenous people, like that's very pan-Indigenous of me to say. No, like I mean Cree specifically, because I know Cree and Métis. Yeah, I guess like I mean the same I think goes for a lot of Indigenous nations, even globally, not just on Turtle Island. But yeah, story sharing is like an integral part of like how we share and transfer information and everything. Like for example, like our Cree creation story and stuff that you learn like in ceremony, you know, and stuff, and it's like a story sharing. It's a practice of story sharing. So a lot of knowledge and a lot of wisdom can be shared just by sharing a story. And so the one I'm going to be sharing today has to do with school. And it has to do with why it's important to determine like what success means to you. And I promise it's not just all school related and stuff. This will translate into life and everything, and I'll explain how. But yeah, no, I thought I should at least in this season of the Neechie Mindset podcast. Oh my God, I love saying season. That makes me sound so professional. But yeah, in the season of the Neechie Mindset podcast, corrupted. The file got corrupted. That's what I wanted to say like 10 minutes ago. Do you remember? It's corrupted. Anyways. I want to insert as many like stories and like anecdotes and stuff like that because I think like the power of story sharing is so important. Without further ado, let's hop into the story. So it all started when I was a kid. I was part of that gifted category. You know, that special sect of children where there was a lot of high hopes and expectations placed on you at a young age because you excelled in school. I was one of those kids. You know, you're not quite a genius. Yeah, I like, you know, like those kids that are like, they're going to excel in school. Maybe they'll graduate a year or two early and stuff like that. They'll go to a university and they'll be very successful in their careers. You know, like I was part of that kind of group of children. And like it even started like, and I kind of want to give props, honestly, to my mom for that. She taught me how to read very early, like before I was even in school. I was reading, and she taught me also basic like math and everything. And yeah, and then I also went to like a daycare where they taught us Spanish. It was like a Spanish speaking daycare and everything like that. So there's very early in my developmental stages, I guess, there is a lot of opportunity for expansion of the mind and my knowledge and everything. And obviously, not to discredit myself, like I was always kind of very curious, and I had a lot of questions about the world. I mean, every kid does, but I was also equally obsessed with finding the answers, like research and everything, and experimenting, and yeah, and just like learning. I loved learning all kinds of things, like honestly, from just like everything. Like I didn't have like a specific interest that I was like obsessed with and stuff. Instead, I wanted to know a little bit about everything. And yeah, so not to describe myself and stuff, because obviously, yeah, anyways, all this led to is I spit on the microphone. All this led to me being referred to as like very gifted when I was a kid. And to the point where like when I was in grade 1, they had me doing like testing, I think, or something. Like I don't remember much honestly from that school, besides like this drill that we had one time. And then this, obviously, like when I was in grade 1, they wanted to move me up a few grades and everything, because I was testing at a grade 4 level, I think. Yeah, and then so they asked my mom, and they're like, hey, like Brittany's actually like pretty gifted and stuff like that, like, you know, do you want to move her to like this upper grade? And my mom said no. And for a long time I kind of held a lot of anger about that, but I kind of understand, like now she wanted me to kind of socially develop, and she was just scared that, you know, I wouldn't. I still didn't. I even though she said no and she kept me in the grade that was like in my age or whatever and everything, I did not socially develop super well. But that's beside the point. Okay. Yeah, so I stayed in that class and stuff, and even though like I also understand from the teacher's perspective why they wanted me to like kind of skip ahead too and stuff, is because I didn't find school super challenging. In fact, I found it incredibly easy. And you know, I could become a distraction because of that, because I thought everything was just so easy that I, you know, like I was like, we don't need to work that hard and stuff like that. Like it's easy. Like we could just kind of goof off a little bit or something like that. So I stayed in my age category and grade whatever. And then I just continued through school, and it was obvious that I was good at school. I started winning like awards and contests and honestly being recognized too. Even in those like earlier grades, I was like tutoring kids who are older than me. I was like helping with their reading and everything, and reading comprehension and math. Yeah, so that's kind of like how like my elementary school years went and everything. Was I had been labeled as gifted, and you know, like school is incredibly easy. And there was like a lot of these like, oh my God, you're going to do like wonderful things one day and stuff like that. Like if you go on to university, like, and all this stuff, you're going to succeed in life and stuff. Like that's all nice and everything. However, that did put a bit of pressure on me, I guess. And it's something that continued even when I began grade 7. Going to grade 7 was a lot different because I was leaving settlement school. I went to school on our settlement. So it's just full of a bunch of like native kids, like all of my cousins and whatever. I went to school with them, and there I was like kind of like a big fish in a small pond, I want to say. And middle school is different because now I'm going to town school, and the thing with town school is that it's like there's a bunch of native kids coming from their communities as well for town school, but there's a lot of like not native kids, a lot of white kids and everything, who were also gifted. However, while they were gifted and comfortable going to town school, I was gifted and not comfortable, but I was also gifted and also struggling with like my identity because of like, but that has to do with like religion. It has to do with the racism from not only like the kids in the other school kids, but like also the teachers and everything, and just like this horrible perception of like native people and who they are and stuff like that. And I didn't want to be associated with that, so I was struggling with my identity there. And then also I was struggling with my mental health. Mental health became like a big thing in grade 7 for me. I mean, I'm not going to say like I never struggled with it before grade 7. I feel like there's maybe touches of it here and there. But with puberty, my God, why? Like, I understand why puberty happens and it's like a good thing, whatever. But my God, does it suck? Like, can you just remember like puberty and like how awful it, like everything was? Like my body was changing, and for some reason there was just suddenly very dark thoughts in my mind that I couldn't escape and everything, and like everything just seemed bleak and what. And maybe that wasn't your puberty. Unfortunately, that was mine. But and so I held myself up to kind of this level of excellence that had been very easy for me to obtain so far. And then I began to struggle. And the thing is, I wasn't struggling because of the coursework or what we were learning. No, that was still very easy for me. I was struggling because suddenly I was seeing these other kids who were also gifted and everything, and had like such high expectations for them. And suddenly the expectations for me kind of were lower than them because I was native. So I had a little bit of a chip on my shoulder for that, because I was like, oh, like they can succeed in class and it must be so easy for them because they're not thinking about all of these problems with their identity, you know, and stuff. Because I didn't understand yet that just because it like looks okay on the outside doesn't mean you're not struggling with stuff behind the scenes and stuff. But yeah, so I saw these other kids and they were also gifted, and I kind of like set myself in competition with them a little bit. However, I was also juggling these massive identity issues and insecurities, and also just things at home that were happening, and just and suddenly the teachers were not looking at me with hope, but more so they were beginning to see more and more the statistic of what they saw native people as. And because I was gifted, it was kind of like I had to like represent a little bit. I had to represent the Neechies there, you know? And with that, they started pushing also the dreams that they had for these kids onto me. Yeah, it kind of felt like we were also just being placed in competition. I mean, they literally were placing us in competition a little bit. But anyways, at this time in my life, what became a big thing was this idea of success being tied to my education, to my grades, and eventually to my eventual entry into academia, like as a university student. I kind of like put my head down and I started working because I wanted to like get honors. I wanted to be as good as these other kids that I saw. But I was also dealing with like these massive changes in my life and in my body, and in my brain chemistry. And also I was finding it increasingly harder to mask my neurodivergent tendencies because I wanted to fit in. Like I wanted to not like fit in with like the cool kids or anything like that, or fit in just with people, but I wanted to fit kind of this idealized student that the teachers had told us about, you know, stuff that like the kid who gets like good grades, they're like active listeners, they're helpful in the class, blah, 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 blah. And everything. And I wanted to be that. But the thing is, like, my listening looks a lot different to other people's listening, and the way that I go about my assignments and my homework and everything like that, and my studying is a lot different. But I kept trying to hold myself to kind of how these other kids were succeeding because I wanted that. And so I was holding myself up to these kind of like incredibly high standards of how I should be behaving and how I should be succeeding in class and school and whatever. And at the same time, questioning my identity as an Indigenous person because of also the racism I was facing and everything. So that's kind of how middle school went for me. And then you get to high school, and high school, it got even worse because not only was my mental health worse, but now that time for like applying for universities and setting up intentions for universities was growing, and it was quickly approaching. Also at that same time, my grades started slipping because I was working really hard at being like that student and to continue like that gifted era, I guess. I don't know. Or I guess to like kind of like hang tight to that gifted title that I had been given as a child. And so I kept my head down and I kept studying and stuff. But I found that like the harder I tried at it, the more I sucked at it. Like the worse my grades got. And also at the same time, I was struggling with authority. I mean, this began in like grade 7, honestly. But when the teachers stopped respecting me as a person because of my Indigenous identity, I stopped respecting them as authority figures in my life, like a tit for tat kind of thing, which is like fine, but that extended to other teachers in my life as well. I just began to have a problem with authority. And this really kind of started sprouting out too when like before, like whenever I read in class, like it was like seen as this like good trait or whatever, but now that it doesn't fit within their parameters of what they think a good student should be, I'm suddenly getting in trouble for it, like this imposed authority and standard that is being set against me, which I guess before didn't matter, but now does and stuff. So I was having problems with authority. And then I was also starting to see a lot of gaps in like education as well. Like I was starting to see how ineffective standardized education is, but also like how twisted the views are. Because like I would like be learning in social studies about like coureur de bois and like the fur trade and everything, but it'd always be in the eyes of like French Canadians, and stuff. Like I would ask as like, what about us? What were we doing? And they're like, oh, like Indians were so helpful. Like they got the furs and then that's about it. That's all they contributed. And like it was just like this very like sanitized version of like history, Canadian history we were learning and everything. And then I would go home and I'd ask my dad about it. And then he's like, Ma, no, like the Métis, like the Métis were the fur trade, and everything. And like he would have to like re-explain what actually happened and everything and like our history with it and everything. And so I started to see that like my Indigenous ancestors were being left out of like social studies and everything. So I started to see like obviously like big holes in education. However, I was so attached to these other students and their ideas of success and the teachers and their ideas of success that I just kept pushing through. I kept pushing past all of this because I was like, I need to succeed. And what success means to them is that you get good grades and that you're an active listener and that you don't get in trouble and that you're this like perfect student and everything like that. And that you do hours of homework at home and everything. And I wanted to be that because that's what success was at that time. That's what success meant. And so in high school, like when my grades started slipping, and we have this like weird notion where we tie kids' like self-worth, and whether it's intentional or not, I think it is intentional. I think it is like, or maybe not so intentional, but it's just a byproduct of kind of the world we live in, where we live in a world where we always need to be doing something and contributing to society and working towards capital gain and whatever. And we impose this very early on in school systems where kids are and their self-worth are kind of tied to their grades and their performance. So when my grades began slipping, I started to feel worthless because I was pushing myself so hard and studying so much. Yet I was handing in all of my assignments late and everything, and I wasn't testing well and everything, and I couldn't understand why. Like I was applying myself so much. I was doing everything that they said I needed to do to be a good student, and I wasn't a good student for some reason. My grades were not good. And when I say not good, I'm talking about 70s. That's how like hard. I was gonna say there's a stick up my butt. That's how like hardcore I was about school and everything, because I used to get like 90s all the time, and then when they slipped to 70s, I was like, oh, I'm worthless, And this pattern continued throughout high school, like the rest of high school, where I was setting myself to an incredible standard because that was a standard being set for me by other people. And also that was like what success was for me. That was the only kind of merit of success that I could see or I've heard about, or was accessible to me as a Native kid, like in school. Even though I was, to the detriment of my health, trying to achieve and personify that standard. And so like it got to the point where like in my math 30-1 class and stuff like that, like I was trying so hard, but I was just not getting it. I think the switch from algebra to I was in pre-calc, or I was in calculus or whatever, really messed with my brain. I just like it wasn't clicking for some reason, no matter how. And I was like applying myself, mind you, I was also in the depths of depression while doing this. I was juggling my own mental health. I just moved to this city and everything like that. It was just like it was a crazy time. And it got to the point where I slept through my diploma. Like that's how just in a not good place I was. Like I literally just like slept. My body gave up because I was studying so fervently for the diploma exams and everything that I literally slept through my diploma exam. And I just didn't feel like up to it a week later when I could rewrite it. So I just ended up taking the class again. Mind you, like most of my classes were done at this time. So I was just looking for a way to fill my schedule, honestly. But yeah, like my mental health and my physical well-being had gone so bad that I literally slept through one of like the most important exam in high school or whatever. And it just like it didn't make sense to me because I thought to myself, like, if I'm applying myself this much, like I should just be growing, and everything. But I wasn't. In fact, like I was getting worse and worse, the harder and harder I worked, and it wasn't coming naturally to me. And I didn't understand why, because it seemed like for the other kids, like it was natural and it was easy for them and everything. And I wanted so badly to like succeed in the way that it was painted for me. What success was like getting good grades, and then eventually, at this time in my life now, applying for like all these like prestigious universities and getting full ride scholarships and all of this and da 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 da. And then at that same point in time, I started doing in high school a lot of advocacy work. So, I mean, this is it came from like a messed up kind of way, but like I was being tokenized by my school and everything. I recognize that now and everything because they were making me do a lot of free labor. Honestly, like the stuff that I did for them for free, I now get paid a lot to do now, and everything. Like, so I helped establish like their Indigenous programming for their school. Like I helped set up their like Indigenous family night. I helped set up their like Indigenous youth club and whatever. I helped build their Aboriginal 30 curriculum that they taught in their school. And then I was also talking to like younger classes about decolonization and reconciliation. That was in the time of reconciliation where it was like, like that 2016, 2018 and stuff like that. Yeah. And I talked about residential schools and everything. And I was teaching all these like kids like these things, and I found like kind of like a lot of like real purpose in that kind of work. I found a lot of like fulfillment, but also it came naturally to me. It was very easy for me to kind of do that work. Like sure, it was taxing on top of like my school work and everything like that to be working kind of like this full-time job for this school for free, and like there's that whole conversation about being tokenized and everything, but that wasn't success. That wasn't painted as success. That was just like extracurricular activities that I could do and stuff. But the real work is getting good grades and university and falling into line basically and everything. And so I was failing so hard at this that I couldn't see the success in that. This kind of just brings us back around to why it's important to determine what success means for you, because I was working myself tirelessly to the bone to go to university to study this at a prestigious school for this like prestigious degree and to continue on in academia, because that's what successful people did, apparently, to teachers, to the other kids who were also gifted and everything. Like that was a future, and that was a path painted for me. That was a path forward to success, and that's what it looked like. And yet I was failing so miserably at it, and I felt miserable, and I was miserable at it because that wasn't what I actually wanted to do. I didn't actually want to go to university. I saw many holes in education, and I just didn't respect the Western standardized education system as a whole. And yet I was basically pulling myself apart to appease them and to fill their box of what it means to succeed, because I hadn't yet defined what success means to me and what it means for me to be successful. Because for me, success, and I'm very open about this now, does not have anything to do with university. In fact, I'm quite anti-establishment. I'm quite against standardized education, if you can't already tell. But also just like university and stuff. Like, I don't think it's necessary to succeed in the world today with university. In fact, I think university in a way kind of can impede your success. But again, that's from my own definition of success. Because the thing is, I'm friends with academics. Like, my friends are PhD and master's students, and their work is integral to what they see as success. And so it's important to them. And this is why it's so important to not compare yourself, because comparison is a thief of joy. Determining what success means to you is good for a few reasons. Number one, you won't wake up when you're 50 not having accomplished anything that is fulfilling for you or that makes you happy. You wake up unhappy and you're 50 and you realize that you've never really done anything for yourself. Even though you might have a nice house or a car or a steady job or, a partner who really loves you or maybe even kids and stuff, but you don't feel successful. And that's because you were living your life according to other people's standards and ideals of success. So while I had been struggling and trying to persevere through my mental health in order to pursue, what had been painted to me as success from an early age because of my title as a gifted child, even to the detriment of my health, like I was doing this and I was still failing and I didn't feel good. And it wasn't even something I enjoyed. The thing is, like, I enjoy studying, I enjoy research and everything, but I enjoy researching topics according to my own interests, and I don't think testing is a good way to, I guess, test your knowledge and capabilities and understanding of a topic. It's just teaching you how to memorize. So while I had been like hopelessly failing at this part, on the other side of that, like I was doing a lot of good advocacy and activism work, and that felt good and that felt right. However, I couldn't recognize that in that moment. I couldn't recognize that could be a part of what I determine success as, because the thing is, I like, for me personally, success has to do with the work that you do in your community. Determining what success means for you is so important also because it helps you become content with what you have. And in a world that is constantly wanting you to consume and to capitalize and to always be pursuing something else, and wanting to pursue one thing after the other, like in Hamilton, have you ever listened to Hamilton, where he's like, why do you write like you're running out of time? Write day and night like you're running out of time. Every day you fight because you're running out of time, like you're running out of time. Anyways, I digress. So basically, the main character, Alexander Hamilton, is the entire play is about him constantly striving for this American ideal of success. And he is an immigrant orphan, and he is constantly trying to prove to others and to himself that he can make it. However, in doing so, he ends up destroying relationships in his life, not only with his children, but with his wife. He ends up cheating on his wife. He ends up literally at the he ends up at the center of this massive scandal that he himself imposed because he wanted to save face, and admit that he had been cheating on his wife, even though that was embarrassing for his wife, and it was all for the sake of his legacy. And it was all for the sake of just constantly striving. And he just needed one more thing and stuff. And that's the way that the world wants us to operate too, is with that mindset. But when you yourself can define what success means to you, when enough is enough, when you can be content, For example, if you determine that $6,000 a month for income is enough for you to not only live comfortably and to be on top of all your bills and to have like a really good savings plan and investment strategy and portfolio and everything, and that's what you need to be happy, then when you hit that $6,000 a month income, then you're not going to be like, oh, okay, now let's do $10,000 a month. Now let's do $100,000 a month. You're not going to be constantly striving for like the next thing, because you've already established that to you, success means that your bills are paid on time, that you have good food in your fridge, and that you have a nice, comfortable, warm house, and that you don't have to worry about your bills and stuff, and that you can build a savings account and financial stability using that $6,000 a month. And of course, success is not just is not only just monetary things and stuff. Success is your relationships. Success is how you view yourself. Success is living the life that you want to live. Like, that is ultimately what success is. And so when you define it, you stop running somebody else's race. And also you start comparing yourself to other people, because everyone is running a different race. We're all on different paths, on different journeys, and we're all heading to a place that is meant for us. And we were given gifts by Creator to be used. And we were given dreams by Creator because Creator gave us gifts in order to complete those dreams. So those dreams and those goals that you have, and this idea of life that you want to live for yourself, is possible, is attainable for you because it was given to you, because you have that dream in the first place. And so determining what success looks like for you is so important, because now success didn't mean going to university. I went to university for 2 weeks before I realized that this isn't what I want to do with my life. And this isn't what it means to succeed to me. And so I dropped out of university and I pursued self-employment. And even though it took quite a few years to kind of get to where I am now, I can now see the success of what I'm doing because I'm not comparing my journey to anyone else's, and I can feel content with what I have. And that is such a value that is lost in a society that constantly wants you to consume. And honestly, being content and being happy and knowing when to stop, when to stop being in pursuit, is one of the most radical actions you could take in today's age, honestly. So anyways, I hope that you maybe got something from that. I know that I kind of talked about a lot of things and everything, but I hope that you learned something, and I hope that you kind of figure out what success means to you. And so you don't waste 10 years of your life, of your school life, trying to live up to what other people's ideas of success is. We don't judge a fish for its ability to climb a tree. We honor the gifts that the fish has in swimming in water, so we don't judge it because it can't climb a tree. And so comparison is a thief of joy. So determining what success means to you ensures that you are not spending your life running someone else's race. And that's all I have to say. I have to go now. I have to go catch a flight. So thank you for tuning in. I just want to say thank you. Much love. And yeah, I will see you next time for the next episode of the Neechie Mindset Podcast. So thank you. Now. I'm grateful to you all. And Asamina Kwapintin, or as they say in Italy, ciao. I actually don't know if they say ciao in Italy, but ciao.